Welcome everyone to today's RPR presentation. Today's webinar will begin in just a couple minutes, but I would like to remind everyone that for the duration of the webinar, you guys are in listen-only mode, and that simply means you can hear me, but I cannot hear you. So if you have any questions, please locate your Zoom control panel. It should be somewhere along the bottom of your screen. And in that control panel, you will see a Q&A icon. You can click on that icon. It's going to open up a little dialog box, and that's going to allow you to type your questions in, and we will be able to respond to it. My name is Katie Globoff. I'm a trainer with RPR. I will be presenting this afternoon's webinar. And with me on today's presentation is Joe Teeter, who's also training manager with RPR. She will be answering those questions as they come in through that Q&A module. I would also like to make note that this presentation is being streamed onto our Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook and watching us, I'd like to give you a shout out. If you want to find a copy of this after today's presentation, you can also check on our Facebook page or our RPR Connect group. And you can also check your email, because we will take a copy of this presentation and we will send it out to everyone by email. But we do want to go ahead and get started with today's presentation of RPR's perfect pricing with easy, accurate CMAs. At RPR, we know that you want to be a wildly successful realtor. In order to do that, you need to close more deals. The problem is it's hard to differentiate yourself from the competition, which makes you second guess yourself. We believe your hard work should lead to success. We understand how much is riding on your next deal, which is why we built the nation's largest property database exclusively for realtors. Our ground layer of information is parcel-centric property information on over 166 million properties across the U.S., which includes public record information, property characteristics, tax information, mortgage information, foreclosure information, local market statistics, and demographics. If your local MLS participates, you'll also have that layer of MLS active sold and off-market data available to you as well. We don't sell, we don't syndicate, we don't share, we don't publish this information anywhere. So it is exclusively for realtors. And this is a member benefit. So this is included with the dues that you pay with your NAR membership. So it's time for you to take advantage of these tools. So what we're going to talk about today is pricing with RPR. We have a suite of products for our valuation and analytic tools. We have your AVMs as well as your realtor valuation models, which is a starting point for you to refine those values within RPR. We also have comp analysis tools. We have 2 different CMAs that you can create. Our comp analysis, which yields our seller's report, and then our more detailed sales comparison analysis, which yields our valuation workbook. So let's talk about those estimates of value. The AVM, or the automated valuation model, is a market value estimate that's calculated for a property using publicly available information only. This type of valuation is oftentimes what's used with those consumer-based valuation tools. So if someone does a Google search, what's my home worth, and they pick out of the 6 billion search results that come up, all of those third-party platforms, whether it's Zillow or Chase or Bank of America, they're all using public record data to provide you with an AVM or a value for a property. We also have the RVM, or the Realtor's Valuation Model. This is trademarked to RPR. It only appears in RPR, and this is a market value estimate that not only uses that publicly available information, but it includes that local layer of MLS active sold and off-market data as well. So this is the highest accuracy of any valuation tool that's available. But remember, these are just estimates of market value and not price predictors. But let's take a moment and break down these different types of AVMs. As you know, you've probably done it. If you go to these consumer-based sites and you throw in the same property address into a few different ones, you'll get different values. And that's because the algorithms and the public record data that they use to generate these values are different. And there's three basic types of AVMs that are in the market today. You have your hedonic AVM, you have your indexed AVM, and you have your blended AVM. So let's start with the hedonic AVM. Your hedonic AVM treats a property as a bundle of valued characteristics. So each characteristic has a predetermined value. And then it takes that value times the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the square footage, the pool, and it sums it all up to determine the property's estimated market value and then compares it with similar natured properties in the market. So what you want to remember about your hedonic AVM is that it weighs heavily on the value of property characteristics. Your indexed AVM predicts the valuation based on sales trends in a geographic area. So specific aspects of a subject property, like characteristics, are not really considered value-wise, although they are considered to select a number of similar properties to compare it to. So your indexed AVMs really look at sales trends in a geographic area to determine value. Then you have your blended AVM. Your blended AVM combines both sales trends and specific property details. It uses statistics that show the accuracy of predictions for both hedonic and indexed models over time. It weighs each value according to the provider's proprietary formula. So this one looks at an indexed AVM and a hedonic AVM. It kind of blends them together into its own proprietary formula, looks at how they all sum out to each other, looks at statistical data sets over time, and then it gives that property a value. Okay? All of these are done automatically. So there's nothing that's actually looking at the physical property. It's automatically selecting comps and throwing them into a mathematical equation. Now, there are limitations to AVMs. Number one, AVMs assume that the structure actually exists. It may not take into account that it was destroyed by a natural disaster. AVM assumes average condition. Every property is on an equal playing field. It doesn't account for upgrades or the value or condition of those upgrades relative to comparable properties. And oftentimes, AVMs are advertiser-based sites that are looking to collect consumer data like addresses, email addresses, and names. Now, the RVM, or the Realtor's Valuation Model, which is proprietary to RPR, it's owned by members of the National Association of Realtors, is a blended valuation that adds MLS data. So the current listing and off-market information in a proprietary algorithm to produce the most reliable valuation information available. But more importantly, it's the starting point for you to make value refinements. The RVMs in RPR are also supplied with a confidence score. And a 5-star confidence score means that you can expect a property's sales price to be within 10% of the property's estimated value 90% of the time. And as we lose confidence, the sales price gets a little bit wider 90% of the time. Okay. It also shows a consistency with our algorithms, and that the sum of those algorithms were closely related to each other. So remember, you're going to have this 10% differential. And that could be due to the condition of the property and other market indicators, which is why the RVM is the starting point for you to refine that RVM value. Now there's 4 ways that you can refine this value, and I'll share it with you when we get into RPR. You can refine it due to public records, errors and omissions. Okay. There could be a lack of accurate square footage. The bedroom or bathroom count may not display accurately from public record. Home improvements and the quality of those improvements, whether they're mid-range improvements or upscale improvements. Needed improvements, okay, which could mean the property is below average condition. And then your local market conditions, inventory, supply, trends, curb appeal, all those things can impact the value of a property. So let's go ahead and jump into our RPR homepage and talk about those pricing tools and those AVMs and RVMs. So I have pre-selected a subject property that we're going to use in today's example. So I'm going to go ahead and type in that property address into our All Properties search tab. So that property address is 837 North Quail Lane in Gilbert, Arizona. And I'm just going to select my magnifying glass. That's going to go ahead and run our search. And it's going to bring up our property. So let's look at the property summary for just a moment. Here we do have our RVM value. Just below our RVM value, we do have a timestamp. If I zoom in on this, we do update our properties with a new RVM or AVM every 30 days. So we always have that date and timestamp for the last update date. You will see just to the right of the RVM value, you do have that little information icon. You can hover over that, and that's going to give you a little bit of information on why in some instances we may display an AVM or over an RVM. So take a look at that. And just below, you're going to see a link here that says View Details. When you click into this View Details link, you're going to see a sampling of the properties that were used to create the RVM. These should be similar characteristics, okay, but remember they're weighed in dependent on that. Our subject property is the orange one. And then all of those that were automatically identified, or a sampling, I should say, it's not all of them, but a sampling of those is below. So here we have our subject property, and then we have some recent sales, as well as some off-market properties. Now, if this is your backyard and you're looking at an RVM detail for a local property, you may know these off-market properties. You may know these recently sold properties. You could have been a party to the sale for some of them. Maybe you showed some, maybe you listed some. So this could give you a little bit of insight into the condition of your subject property and how it relates to comparable properties in the market area. You'll notice on the upper right-hand side, you can print this page out. So if you want to use it in your pricing discussions, you can print it out. I'm just going to go ahead and close out of that. It's going to bring us back to our subject property. You will see in the middle here, we get the estimated range. So if this property's in average condition, the RVM has it at $365,000. If it's below average, it could be $331,000. If it's above average, it could be $380,000. We get that confidence score, which tells us all of our algorithms lined up. So we project that this property will sell within 10% of its RVM value. It's going to show you that value change month over month, as well as year over year. So those details are there for you. Just below that information, you will see our street view for the property. Now, we do use Google for all of our imaging and mapping tools within RPR. So this does have a street view. We also have an overhead view. Now, because there's no MLS history on this property, or at least history within the last 2 years, we're not seeing those MLS photos here, but there is a link just below our Google Street View that will show historical photos from any of the previous times the property was listed. As I scroll down under notes, you will see where you can add your agent notes. These could be anything really. I like these to be my agent notes. I keep these private, so I can just uncheck this box so they're not included in my report. Just below that, I have another section where I can add additional notes. These may be client-friendly notes. As I add these and include these in my reports, they are dated and time-stamped. Another nice feature that we have here is the ability to upload photos. When you go on that ultimate listing presentation, photos have a huge impact on the client. So in this case, the primary image that you see here is what will be the cover image for our report. Now, this is looking at the side of our subject property from the outside of the neighborhood. We do have the ability to override this image by uploading our own. So using a sample photo, I can just select upload photo. I can find on my computer where I have my sample house or my photo. I can add it into RPR. Once I see the image in here, it's in the RPR platform for me to see only, or my client if I choose to share it with them. So to set this as the primary, I want to select the edit feature, and I want to use this for my report cover page. Once I select that radio button, it's important that you save this cover photo. Now, this image here will override whatever image appears in this box for our report photo. I also want to point out we do have a seller's proceeds calculator here as well. You can type in those values to get that high and that low. Just to share with you some additional facts that we have, here's your homeowner facts. Here's your home facts. So if there's any public record information that's missing, you can add that information in here. Maybe the municipality does not count the number of bedrooms. So in discussions with the homeowner, we've determined it's a 4-bedroom property, so we can go ahead and add that. You'll also see here to the bottom that you can add additional fields. Maybe you want to add something like there's a fireplace. So you just want to go ahead and add that as a feature. You can add that as a feature. You can save that so it gets locked into RPR. You will get additional information like interior, exterior details, legal description, mortgage information. I want to scroll up and point out 2 additional things to take a look at when you're preparing for your pricing. Number 1 is the option to compare historical records. So this is on your summary. You'll also see it again when we take a look at the history tab in just a minute. But I can come in and look at any previous listing that's occurred for this property, and I can compare that to public record today. Now, what this does allow me to do is get a snapshot of when potential improvements were made to a property. So if they claim the house was painted in 2015, and I can look back and see images of 2013 that show it was painted back in 2013. If I want to look for potential improvements, I can take a look at that history. And then here we also have the bigger maps. And I like to point out the bigger maps for just a moment because our heat maps are here. So if you want to take a look at the heat maps to really understand those market conditions will come into play when I share with you how to refine those values. So if you just want to get a good idea of what's going on inventory-wise in the neighborhood, have there been a lot of recent sales? Okay. Recent sales, you can look for little greenhouses. Is there a lot of active listings and pending listings? Active are the blue, pendings are the navy. Are there distressed properties? So you can see that inventory right in a visual. You also have the ability to look at things like estimated home value, 12-month change in estimated value, pending sale concentration. Are you in a median market for pending sales, low market? That's going to help your seller. Your list price versus sales price. Are homes in the neighborhood selling above or below list price? So take a look at these heat maps, because those heat maps will come into play when we get into those refining tools. Let's take a moment to take a look at the story of the home, which you can identify by clicking on the history tab of the property. This is going to point out the sales and financing activity. So any refis, any revolving lines of credit that may have been pulled out on the home. It's going to show that fluctuation of that AVM and RVM value. You can take your mouse and hover over any icon that you see or any point in the timeline to understand values. You will see prior sales transactions. You'll have 2 toggle buttons which will go between the listing record sales transactions. You can select next and previous, as well as public record sales transactions. So you'll see any quick claim deed, any transfer to a trust will appear here as well. You'll get that tax assessment information, mortgage information, as well as any historical distressed information. So we can see, although it was a long time ago, maybe with a prior owner, but this property did experience some financial distress. Again, we have those compare historical MLS records for the property right here where we can come in and look at those compare historical records. If we want to get a real quick check on the market statistics, we can see how this zip compares. Median estimated home value to list price, sales price versus sales volume, list price versus list volume. It's trended over. You can look 3 years, 2 years, 1 year back. We all have links about this data, which is going to tell you supply drives pricing movements. We update this information on a monthly basis. But you can also see how this subject property measures up to the local inventory. So here for the zip code, we can see there's 123 active single-family residents. Okay, if this was a condo, we can compare it to condos or lot and lands. We get the inventory of distressed properties. So this shows 34 pre-foreclosure, 8 in foreclosure. This is distressed properties filed with the clerk of courts coming from public record data. Okay, where we can see inventory of distressed listings, which are currently active on the MLS. And then we can see how this house compares to comps, sales price by square footage, price per square foot, price per bedroom, age range. So we can see some of those trends right away. But let's jump into those pricing tools. So we're going to take a look back to our summary of the property. Remember, we have that RVM value right here. We have that view details link, which is going to show us the sampling of properties that were used. We get that range. We get that confidence score. We can print this page out. But this is the starting point for you as an agent to do that research, and you can refine this value. Now you can select refine value along the top, or you can refine your value right here by jumping in. So we talked about those 4 ways: public record, errors and omissions, home improvements, needed improvements, home and market conditions. So let's say we're looking at refining the value by adjusting the basic facts for the property. In our research, we found that there was an error or omission from public record. We determined that there are 3 bathrooms in this home, 2 full bathrooms and 1 partial bathroom. So we want to come in and correct this error coming in from public record. So we have a 3 bath count, which is comprised of 2 full and 1 partial. So when we apply those changes, it's going to drop our value from 356 to 345. Now you will see there is a restore original that will erase that if you need to. So if there is an error and omission of living area, bedroom count, bathroom count, it may affect the value of the property and it may not. It just depends on the local market and if that characteristic was looked at when determining that value. Now you can refine the value based on home improvements. Now this information does not come from RPR. You can hover over this little information icon and we're going to share with you that these values, okay, are put onto a 20-year depreciation scale. We have a standard list of improvements and you can also add a custom entry. Hanley Wood, who is our data provider, and a leader for new housing development and market data. They provide us this information annually, and it's done at a regional level. So if you have a home that improvements were done, you can add those improvements. You will see we have the standard list here, and the standard list will provide you with an upscale remodel as well as a mid-range remodel, because they're going to depreciate differently. You would enter the completion date that the homeowner added the improvement, and then what their total cost was. So maybe they redid their kitchen at a total cost of $2,000, at the total cost of $26,000, and it was done in May of 2016. It's going to depreciate that value. Maybe they updated the flooring, and the flooring is not on this list. You can add carpet to hardwood. Okay. They completed that in February of 2017, and the total cost for that improvement, was $20,000. It's going to add that information into RPR. Now you can refine the value based on needed improvements. Maybe you're walking the property and you go to hit the garage door, and you see that the motor and spring need to be replaced. And you have your garage door expert come out, and they quote you a cost to replace the door, the motor, and the springs, $4,000. It's going to depreciate the home's value. And then remember, we took a look at those heat maps. So now we're going to apply those local market conditions to our RVM as well. So we can refine this value based on those conditions. How was that inventory? How is the days on market for the neighborhood? What's the demand? Okay. Maybe this market has 2 or 3, this neighborhood has, 2 or 3 active listings. The active listings for those 3 properties, the average days on market's 82 days. We have 1 pending property. So the neighborhood has a lot of competition right now, which is going to be a tough move for our seller. The home exterior condition is on par with the neighborhood. The home interior condition is on par with the neighborhood. The lot size, it's a little bit larger. Maybe it's at the end of a cul-de-sac. Okay, it's a key lot. Maybe it has a very nice view. It backs up to a conservation lot. It has a lot of nice privacy. It's a gated community. All of these things could come into play, and you're just using these slider scales to adjust that value. You're going to get your overall adjustment for your refined value at the top. If I go back to my summary page, that refined value will also be here as well. Now, because these RVMs, and AVMs are an automated estimate of market value, you can refine that value based on local triggers and property improvements, needed improvements, but you also want to be able to back this up with that comparative market analysis, where you're hand-picking those comps to determine a list price or purchase price for a property. So I'm going to come in, and now I want to share with you the CMAs that you can create for your property. We're going to click right into build a comp analysis for our property. So here we're going to get a summary of our property details. You'll see the 2 types of CMAs that we can create, the sales comparison analysis and the comparative analysis. We cover a lot of information quickly in this demonstration. So when we go back to RPR, If you want to know what the difference is, go ahead and watch this little video. It's going to tell you what the primary difference is between the CMAs. And don't forget, we have our learning resource here for you as well. So if you want additional tips and tricks when it comes to pricing a property, you can click on our learning menu to get a selection of options, whether it's an article or a video, or if you want additional ways to learn, you can click into this as well. We're going to start with our comparative analysis, where we're just going to build an estimate based off of comps that we select. It's going to be a 4-step process. Step number 1 is confirming the home facts. Now, you will see the changes that we made to our property facts earlier are actually going to carry through. If there's additional fields that we want to add for the purpose of our CMA, we have the ability to add those additional fields. Once you add those fields, you're just going to confirm those facts and close. It's going to save that information. And then step number 2 is finding comps. Again, our subject property is to the top. If there is a property that we want to add, we can select add a known property and type in a property address. It's going to pull in that information from public record. And then we can always go back and search an area for several properties. So RPR is going to do some of the hard work for us. It's going to match our property styles. So we know it's going to look for single family. If this was a condo, it would look for condos, etc. It's going to look for sold properties. Underneath it will share that local inventory of active and pending. If your subject property has that unique feature and you want all of your comps to carry that unique feature as well, you can apply that keyword. This is great if your subject property is maybe a condo and there's a difference in value to a waterfront condominium. You may have some condo units that have a water view and some condo units that do not. So if you want to use a keyword to identify comps in the building that have the same view, maybe you have a subject property that's on a golf course and it has a particular frontage, so you want to add that keyword to help narrow down and find that unique feature in those properties. You have your sold date. So your sold date can be last week, last month, last 3 months, 6, 12, 18 months. You can also use a date range if you want to go further back in time. You get that differential on the beds and the baths and living area. If you want to tighten these numbers up, you can take your mouse and just click into these fields and tighten these figures up. If it's a field in your market that you don't want to use, you can uncheck the box and it will not look at that property characteristics when determining comparable properties. If you want to include things like lot size, price range, price per square foot, you can do that. And then you'll notice below here it says the search area occurs in the area shown on the map. So when we look at our map, it's going to search everything within this view. Now, if you want to come in and draw a shape, maybe do a radius and get a half mile in from your subject property, you do have the ability to do that. You can search in that area. If you want to zoom in and maybe draw a polygon around the neighborhood, you can do that. You can use the geography if you want it to be within the zip code, if you want it to be within the school attendance zone. I like to just search the area within the map because it is very visual. All of our comparable properties will pop right up. Our subject property is the orange property. So I can just zoom in when the comps come up and say, hey, I want to use this one as a comp and I want to use this one as a comp. So we can select the comps from within the map view. But if we scroll down, we can also select the comps from our list view as well. Now you will notice the comparable properties that are going to be used in our calculations are the ones I select that are highlighted, okay? Although it does tell us which comparable properties were used in the RVM. But that RVM calculation has nothing to do with our comparable analysis. We're just coming in, selecting the comps that we want to use. The comps that appear in our list can be sorted by address, by proximity, by days on market, by sold date, by amount, by square footage. You click on this header and it's going to sort however way you choose. You want to ideally pick between 3 to 5 comps. If I scroll down, you will see those active properties, but we don't even have to look at them unless we want to see the competition in the market. Once we select the properties that we want to use as comparable properties, we can update our valuation. That's going to bring us into step number 3, where we're going to make adjustments. Now, there's some aesthetics that you can do here. You can change the order of your comparable properties. So we have comp 1, comp 2, comp 3, comp 4. Maybe I want to order these most recent sale out. We can enlarge the photos. And then we're going to rate the comps compared to our subject property, excluding square footage. So we're just coming in saying this comparable property is a little worse. Okay. These are in average to our subject property, but this one is just a little bit nicer. So you're just using these sliding scales to determine the comps compared to subject property. We have our side by side. We have a section here where we can add notes. And then we're going to update our valuation and close. We will get the result of our comp analysis. We can edit this price if we choose to. If you want to enter your own value there. We can save that. And then ultimately, we want to take all of this information and create that seller's report. So we're going to go into create a report, which is our final step. It's going to bring us into our seller's report. Now, before we go into the details of the report, I want to point out you will see on the right-hand side a sample of the cover page. You will see your profile information that's included. So if you haven't done so, view your full profile. Make sure all of your agent contact information is in there. And you also have the ability to manage custom pages. This is where you can upload your own PDF documents into RPR. You can have up to 5 documents, single page. You can put these at the beginning or at the end. You just go to add. You pull in these documents from your desktop. These can be past client testimonials. These could be the importance of curb appeal. These could be prepping your house for a good show. Your agent biography. You can upload these, put them again at the beginning or at the end. You can view the page. You can change them out and remove old ones if they don't apply anymore. And now when you come in to create your seller's report, you will see that your custom page is here. Now, if you're not familiar with the seller's report, maybe you don't know how long it is, you can click Show Sample. You can flip through all of the pages. It's going to tell you all inclusive. The seller's report is going to be about 75 pages long, but we're going to trim that down. because we're looking at all of the elements that the seller's report is going to include. We can hover over these information icons to determine if that's information that we want to share with our client or not. If it's information like historical photos and we don't want to include it, we simply uncheck that box. So you can go through and trim the report down as you see fit. So it's going to include your subject property, the comp analysis. It's also going to include market activity. Market activity is going to share a summary of information and charts that compare things like list price and sales price. Okay. It's going to include recent market activity by listing details. You can determine the status. Maybe you just want to include current active listings. You can limit the photos. You can limit the number of properties included in that market activity. And then, of course, you can personalize this by including a recipient name and a message. You can email it directly to them, or you can display it now and download it as a PDF. Now, of course, I have a seller's report already generated. So remember, we have that custom image that I showed you earlier. We have our contact information. I have my bio and my custom reports. I have our refined value. I have those home facts. Now, this report I pre-generated prior to the class, so the numbers may be a little bit different. We have those home improvements. We have that market health in comparison. List price versus sales price. Our comp map. Our comps that were selected by the agent to run our analysis. Our market area activity. Properties that are competition to our seller's property. Our pricing strategy. Okay. All in that extensive report. So we're going to go back to our property details, and now we're going to look at the sales comparison analysis, which is a more detailed valuation. So what's going to happen when I select this radio button, I'm going to get a dialog box that pops up. It's going to say, hey, if you're an appraiser, please enter your license number. If you're not, check the box that says don't show again and close out of it, or hit skip this step, and that's going to close, and now you can continue. You'll notice the steps are exactly the same, 4 steps. Step number 1, confirm those home facts. Because this sales comparison analysis is a more detailed evaluation, you will notice the home facts are far more detailed. You have above grade, you have below grade, you have basement, you have finished rooms below grade. You have frame, okay? You have tenure, location. You can still add additional information if it applies to the property. Once you confirm those facts, you're going to search for your comps. Now, because this is the second CMA that I'm generating for the same property, it's going to say you already did a CMA. Do you want to use the same comps again? I'm going to select no, because I want you to see when you're searching for comps in the sales comparison analysis, it's exactly the same. You can add a known property by address. You can search an area for several properties. It's going to match to property style. You have your keyword. You have your time frame or date range. Here, you can search proximity with subject property. You still can apply your shape or use your geography. You get that differential on the beds, the baths, the living area. You can click in here and tighten these figures up. If you choose to exclude or include, you can check or uncheck these boxes. You're going to search your area for comps. Those comparable properties are going to come up, and you can make your selections from within your map view. You can sort your comp list. You can also make your selections from the list of comps within your search results. Once you update your valuation and close, it's going to give you your comparable range, and now you're going to make adjustments. Because this is a more detailed evaluation, the way you make your adjustments are a little bit different. Now, the aesthetics are still the same. I can change the order that they appear. I can enlarge the photos. But now if I want to make adjustments, I'm going to make adjustments with the monetary value of that adjustment. RPR does not provide those values. Talk to local experts in your market, appraisers, brokers. But to share with you how to do this technically, if I'm looking at my subject property compared to my comps, and I have a comparable property that is inferior to my subject property. My subject property has 4 bedrooms. One of my comparable properties has 3 bedrooms. I want to make an adjustment. I need to add value to this comparable property so it's in line with my subject property. And I've determined that a bedroom is worth $25,000. I'm going to add that value to my comparable property just by typing that numeric value in to that dollar box. Now, if I'm looking at a comparable property which is superior to my subject property is 2 full baths. My comparable property is 3 full baths. I've determined a full bath is worth $10,000, so I need to take that amount away from my superior comparable property. I'm going to subtract that value by hitting that minus sign on my keyboard and then typing in that numeric value. Okay, so you'll see added value is in blue, okay, where removed or depreciated value is red. You'll see that side by side for those adjustment columns. As I scroll down, you'll see that net and gross adjustment amount. You'll see where we can add notes, which we can include in our report. And then you'll see that adjusted value of those comps. Just below that, you're going to see weight your comps. And weighting your comps, you're determining how similar are your comps to the subject property. Every comparable property, if they're weighted automatically, are going to give the same weight. Now, you can hit any of these edit buttons and see, since we have 3 comps, they're each going to hold 33 to 34% because that equals 100. Now, because one of the comparable properties are so similar in nature that I didn't have to make adjustments, I can auto weight, which says, hey, that property on Princeton Ave is going to hold the most weight in the final value on how it compares to our subject property because it's so similar in nature. The properties that we had to make adjustments for, they're not going to hold as much weight because we had to make those adjustments. And you can see how the equal weight or the auto weight may affect the overall pricing of that property. You can also view the adjustments in a graph as well. This is going to be a page in our RVM, in our CMA report as well. I'm going to update the valuation and close. We have our result of our comp analysis. You can edit this just like we could with our previous CMA. And then you're going to come in and generate a valuation workbook. The valuation workbook can only be generated when we're completing this sales comparison analysis. It is the only time, sorry guys. It is the only time we can create this type of report. So we're going to go in, we're going to create our report. Because our bio's set, because our custom pages are set, we can come in and really quick show that sample if we want to thumbnail through that report. We can also click into more details. We can include the custom pages that we want. We can pick and choose those elements that we want to include in our report. We can limit the number of photos. Okay. We can suppress notes, we can personalize it, and we can deliver it. You select Run Report, it's going to generate that report. What sets the valuation workbook apart is this little section here of the local market conditions summary. So I have a pre-generated report that I want to share with you real quickly, and I'm just going to maximize this report a little bit. I'm going to scroll through rather quickly because they are similar in nature. You get the sales comparison, you get the refined value. Okay, here is our subject property home facts, extended home facts. We get the mapping, we get the flood map for the property. Here's the plat map. These are elements that you can include or not. We get that range of comparable homes. And then we get the map. So our subject property, where our comps fall. We get our side-by-side with our adjustment amount, whether it's a positive or negative adjustment. We get the net and gross adjusted values. And then it goes into even more detail. And you get a full page report for every comparable property, as well as photos. So as we scroll through this, it's going to be very detailed, more so than we saw with our previous CMA. And here we are with our local market conditions summary. So here we're going to see that inventory analysis trended over time span, has an increase, decrease, stabilized, sales, absorption rate. If no new listings were added to the market, how many months would it take to depreciate the inventory of active listings? Your total number of active listings, okay? Your median sales price, list price. And then it does that same analysis, including distress listings, excluding distress listings. And then you get some charts and graphs on local analytics, price per square foot, median sales price, list price. And then again, it's going to roll through inventory and the rest of your comparative sales analysis. So that is that more detailed view of your property. With that being said, we're going to go back to our PowerPoint presentation. A lot of these features, including the ability to create a comparative market analysis, is available through our mobile device as well. So through RPR Mobile, you have access to RPR's vast property information, reports, and tools that's fast, convenient, and essential. It's compatible with Apple and Android-based devices. So if you haven't installed RPR Mobile, go to the App Store or Google Play and go ahead and install it today. So go for it. Go ahead, jump into RPR, identify a challenging property, run a sales comparison analysis, generate that report, look at that local market condition summary. Don't forget you can access RPR at narrpr.com. You may even be able to link to it directly through your local MLS. All things related to RPR, visit our blog. We have additional training materials that are available for you. And if you need any help at all, feel free to reach out to our support desk. They're available 24/7. The phone number as well as a link to chat with our support desk is available at the bottom of every page in RPR. And connect with us on Facebook. Next time you're in, look for RPR Connect and request to join our national Facebook group. On behalf of myself and RPR, I'd like to thank you for joining me in today's presentation. I see Joe has been working diligently to assist me in answering all those questions. So if you have any more questions, now is your time to ask and we'll be able to answer them. If you joined us on Facebook, I want to say thank you for the join. You guys should receive a link to a recorded version of this through our Facebook page. I have a question out there from Dell. Which report do you suggest for a buyer? The property report or the mini property report? Go to our blog, click on training, and look for buyer. It's an option that you have in the pick list, and we can tell you all the questions that you need. All of you are going to get a copy of this. You can go to our blog at blog.nar.rpr.com. You can watch this on demand, and you will get a recording on this as well. Okay, so you will get a recording of this. You can use stats on a listing presentation, of course. Does this work well in rural or multi-state areas? You know, you have to know your market. If you're an agent in a rural area, it will. Just zoom out to find the comps that you need, and they'll be there. As far as a pricing tool, it's going to be the most accurate pricing tool that we have because it pulls comps in from public record and the MLS. Now, if the comps aren't there, you know, they're not going to be in RPR, they're not going to be in your MLS. You have to use those realtor-centric tools to base your price off of. So I hope that works, anonymous attendee. But I think that's going to wrap things up with the questions, guys. So thank you for joining us, and I do hope you have a great rest of the day.